Hi guys, my name's Nick. I'm a stand-up tragedian, and I just thought I would make a video about a download that I received from Dr. Iboga here last year. So here it is.
Messages from the plants.
Message from Iboga.
So last year I was called to take 23 grams of dried Iboga root bark. My intention for that ceremony was just to continue on my never-ending, narcissistic, self-centered quest for personal healing. But instead what I received was a pretty comprehensive download about what's going down right now and what to do. It was virtually like being sat down on the knee of an incredibly old fatherly spirit and just given the score. So I don't want you guys to take this as the truth. I just want to ask you guys just to listen to this as a perspective from a plant being filtered through my channel. So I can't claim that this is the truth. You're quite welcome to think that I'm just a crazy person. But instead of writing it off as just some drug-induced hallucination, actually listen to what was said to me and think about it yourself, what to make of these specific messages, and if you think that they're valid or if they have some form of standalone validity outside of the context. The first thing that Dr. Iboga told me was that the old way, or the current way of being, is fundamentally broken. There's no going back. Sustainability doesn't work because we're trying to sustain a system that is just fundamentally fucked on so many levels. You don't need a plant to tell you that. It's pretty obvious from the amount of environmental destruction and wastage that is associated with the current system that we're in, and exploitation on multiple levels, that you just can't keep doing that and expect to get away with that. It told me that fighting the system is feeding into it in some ways, because we're reacting against it, and it feeds off us reacting against it. And because it's such an all-pervasive, multi-level system that it seems like we can't really escape from, the only real option we have at this point is to withdraw completely from it, because our power lies in the fact that it feeds off us. It needs us to participate in it. So if we actually completely withdraw from it, its power source will be deprived. I said that shit's going down right now. We're past the point of no return, and I guess that's also what motivated me to record this video. And it told me that you best move to regional areas. I don't know why. That's just what it said. It said move to regional areas for two reasons. The first reason is when the shit goes down, if it goes down, people in the city is going to be pretty fucked. I mean, it's going to be total chaos and bedlam in there, and it's just not going to be very good. The second reason is because state control is centered in urban areas and cities. So the further away you are from the center of power, structures, and control, is the less you'll be able to be policed or controlled. It really stressed that we would be moving back towards a more communal living situation, and that this was going to be really hard for a lot of us growing up here in the West, where we've been indoctrinated into an individualistic orientation, which is not a bad thing, but it was a necessary development, I feel. But it's going to take us several generations to actually deprogram many of our self-centered individualistic tendencies, so we're able to operate in a community more effectively, instead of just being a bunch of individualists trying to get what we want all the time. It also talked about how things are getting more polarized now, and there's a process of separation going on. This is happening on many levels. I mean, you're seeing it in the social media sphere, right? There's all these divide and conquer tactics. Everyone has their own opinions. Even though we might want the same things, everyone's arguing about who's right. And I think that's a pretty conscious technique by the system or the state to create disunity, so there can be no, formidable counter response to what's going on. On another level, the separation that the Iboga showed me this image of this egg being separated, the yolk from the whites. And it basically said that, look, some of you guys are going to want to wake up and activate, and a lot of the other people aren't going to be wanting to do that. They're going to be clinging for their dear life to the old structures and the old ways of being because they're invested in it. It's all that they know, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not very adaptable, and that we shouldn't, by we I mean people who are looking to activate and wake up, we shouldn't waste our time trying to convince people who don't want to listen to, wake up or activate ourselves, because it's just a waste of effort, and it's better spent to spend your time and energy working with people who are already on that path of activation and awakening, and so you can really sort of get together and work out what's going on between yourselves individually and collectively, and in order to form an effective counter response. It told me that for those of us who are sort of waking up and activating, it's going to be our role to help shepherd those people when they might be more forced to jump due to the extenuating circumstances of civilization, whether it be climate collapse or, a totalitarian takeover. But in the meantime, it's more constructive for us to band together with people who already know the score and who are already activating and waking up, and support ourselves in getting as far as we can in that process together, instead of, continually trying to, wake people up who aren't ready to listen. Dr. Iboga also told me that we have become way too over-domesticated as a species. I think that's pretty obvious, really, if you think about it, right? We're so addicted to comfort. If we can't get our soy lattes, we have PTSD. If there's a traffic jam, we'll have a nervous breakdown, that sort of thing. We've become pretty soft. And it was telling me that, we're gonna have to make sacrifices, basically, to get our freedom from this matrix system. We're gonna have to sacrifice a lot of things that we enjoy in exchange for sovereignty and freedom. And we're gonna have to rewild ourselves, like seriously, on a serious level. We're gonna have to rewild ourselves and learn some basic survival skills. It's really stressed to me that you guys need to relearn some basic survival skills, because you can't depend on a system that's apparently probably going to be going down or turning into some kind of horrible totalitarian mess. Rewild yourselves, just so you have the option not to be dependent on the state if it ever gets to that point. Dr. Iboga then informed me that it's our generation's role to basically come up with a new story, a new way of being that is much healthier for ourselves and for the various natural systems that we coexist and interdepend on. It's our job to come up with a new story. It'll be successive generations whose role it will be to help manifest this, and then following generations that will have to protect and defend it from outside forces. It gave me a very far-ranging timeline in a way. Iboga seems to work very multiple generations, a very ancestral type medicine. And it also told me that it's our generation's job to firstly clear our ancestral lines of accumulated trauma. I mean, if you think about it, no one ever deals with their shit these days, right? Your parents, they just grit their teeth and get on with it. There's all this backlog of fucked up war trauma and depression, and it seems like this generation that we're in now, we can't really deal with that backlog anymore, and we're having to deal with it through various healing modalities, or just facing that stuff, because we keep carrying that into the present. And until we are able to clear that, the present's always going to have shadows of these unresolved traumas. So it's really important to heal that aspect of ourselves. The other thing that we had to do was deprogram ourselves and decondition ourselves as much as possible from malefic cultural, social, familial programs of behavior. There's all sorts of weird bugs in our system right now that are just accumulated from, bad software. The Iboga told me that this would take several generations to clear. So I think that's a good point to make, because so many of us want to get back to, square one straight away, but it's just not realistic to wipe out an accumulated 6,000 years of various patterns and social fucking conditioning in the space of one life. You can kind of see that now when you meet, second, third, fourth generation hippie or liberal children. They seem to be a lot clearer than us, monkeys who are just trying to start from square one of basic matrix indoctrination formatting. So yeah, we've got to just come up with a new story that is more balanced in its perspective and its relationship with, the individual, the community, the self, nature, ancestry, and spirit. We just got to find a way which it's much more balanced in that sort of relationship. And we're probably going to have to fight to defend this at some point, because the old system isn't going to naturally transform into a beautiful flower. It's probably going to really hold on for its dear life to its old ways and we see it now, it always tries to eliminate any threat or perceived threat to its stranglehold. So I'm not really sure what else this new story revolves around, but I was given a few clues from Iboga that it would involve the abolishment of ownership and private property, and we'd have to come up with some kind of new form or new system of value that doesn't revolve around money. We'd also have to start questioning traditional institutions of marriage and monogamy, which is often based on, old ownership ideals and toxic codependency. And again, this is going to take several generations to nut out. I mean, there's some people already ahead of their time doing that with some of these experimental communes. But yeah, the battle plans always change as soon as the enemy's met. Iboga also told me that we'd be swinging to a matriarchal society soon. That's the next phase. We'll be heading towards a matriarchy. Women will have control for a change, and that's going to be really great in some areas, and obviously not so great in other areas. And then once it's sort of realized that it does take two to tango, we'll swing back to a more even distribution between the genders of the power balance. But men are going to have to really step up to the plate and deal with their man shit and come up with a more positive form of masculinity which doesn't revolve around the domination or destruction of nature or woman. And we're just going to have to grow up. We're going to have to man up. We're going to have to grow out of these little baby man-child type programs that are fucking it up for everyone. And yeah, I'm not sure what this new masculinity is. I guess it might involve taking on the role as a protector or space holder, creating a strong sort of space for the new feminine energy to come through. Yeah, so to be there as stability and support instead of, fucking rushing into warfare, swinging your dick around like a sword. Women will also have to grow up. Sorry, ladies, it takes two to tango, and the human race in general is pretty retarded in the most developmental sense. We're stuck in this permanent sort of adolescent phase, this self-centered, acquisitive sort of form of being which fuels the capitalist consumerist matrix, eat everything machine. And yeah, women are going to have to start growing up as well and getting rid of all these little girl programs. And this is going to be controversial, but there is certain victim mentalities which run through everyone. But yeah, I have witnessed the wrath of Kali take down many innocent men who are potential allies in the wider cause. So I know men have a lot to answer for with the history of terrible treatment of women, but we're going to have to try and avoid getting lost in who's right and who's wrong fights, and focus instead on common outcomes that we both want for the sake of the greater good. And so this is going to be really hard, but I'm not sure if we'll have much of a choice. To help combat with this sort of stunted permanent adolescence that most of the human race is being kept in, there's probably going to have to be some reinstigation of initiation rites, you know, in the most tribal sense, something which can mark the passage of childhood into adulthood, something which will probably be quite emotionally and physically grueling. Yeah, I'm not sure what this looks like. We can't obviously go back to a sort of more primitive state, but we can definitely draw upon ancient indigenous traditions and try and find a modern interpretation for them, which basically ticks all the boxes of what traditional indigenous tribal initiations can accomplish in changing someone and snapping them out of a you know, childlike state. So there's this idea of the Great Awakening, right? And it's meant, you know, you read it all about it in the New Age fucking groups, and everyone's like, oh, it's going to be like this beautiful lotus opening flower, and halos are going to come pouring out of unicorns singing harp songs, and, you know, and I was kind of told by the Iboga that it just doesn't really work that way. This is going to be a birth, and births are gory. There's blood and shit and screaming, and sometimes the mother and child both die in the process. So it's up to us. We can't just sit back and expect this beautiful awakening to fix everything and make it heaven on earth. It's really down to us as a species, collectively, and as an individual, to really help bring this new frequency through. So that's what Dr. Iboga told me. You don't have to believe me. I'm just the messenger, or a crazy person who had a psychosis after eating an extremely powerful hallucinogenic plant. That would be the Western psychiatric definition of it. But I think it's important to listen to nature, to the plant spirits. I feel like they provide more reliable information than any mainstream media source right now. And I'll leave you with one thing that the Iboga also told me during that journey, and that was the sickness begins when you think that you need more. All right, guys. Basi, basi, basi.